Nothing has ever gone wrong in history when the government says, we'll take it from here. On this episode of Moving Panels, we discuss the Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
Welcome to Moving Panels, ignite the mic. From Gotham's alleys to galaxy's far, we dive in deep, we set the bar. Debates and takes, we bring the heat. Pull up a chair, join a seat. Moving Panels, where fandom takes flight. We review, discuss, and shed the light. Heroes, villains, every epic night. This is your show, your fandom's might.
Welcome to Moving Panels, the podcast where we discuss movies and TV shows that are based on, inspired by, and adapted from the world of comic books. I'm your host, Laramy Wells, and today we are stepping back into the MCU. Feels like it's been a while, and we're talking about their second Disney Plus series that does a whole lot more than just gives us superhero action, where this show talks about legacy, about trauma, identity, and what it means to carry not just a country, but a symbol on your back. And we are talking, of course, about the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, which really asks the question, not can Sam be Captain America, but it's asking what actually would happen if he does become Captain America. And of course, as always, I'm not doing this alone. So joining me today is a good friend of the show. And unlike the U.S. government in this series, I would like to say I actually made the correct choice by choosing him. From the 80s Flick Flashback Podcast, it's Tim Williams.
You're not going to move your seat up, are you?
I am not.
Nope.
You gotta love that callback.
It was great. It was great.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's get into this. I kind of have a feeling this might be one of our lengthier episodes because we are talking about a series which is 6 episodes. I will admit, I told Tim this as we were preparing for this. I went in expecting 8 because pretty much all of them are always 8. And so when I started watching it, all of a sudden I realized, wait, this one's about to end. It's only 6. I was kind of surprised. But we did get the premiere of Falcon and the Winter Soldier on Disney Plus March 19th of 2021. That means almost a year to the day of when the world shut down for COVID.
Yeah.
But before we get into a lot of that detail, let me ask you, did the shorter amount of episodes, fewer amount of episodes, did that work for you? Or did you think that it felt a little too rushed? Like, would you preferred 8?
No, I don't think
there was enough story?
Yeah. I felt like there's actually a few episodes that I felt like it's kind of like 6 of one, half a dozen the other. There are certain things that I felt like I needed more explanation of. And there were other parts where I was like, we don't really need this segment to really advance the story as much as I think we should. But I also think because it seemed a little convoluted at times where they were just kind of throwing a lot of stuff at us, like throwback characters and, behind, kind of like their I can't talk today. Sam and Bucky's kind of like side stories of like their own struggles outside of the main thing that they're working on. And then you throw in the new Captain America who becomes the US agent. It just, it feels like...
Then you got the Flag Smasher story. Yeah. You've got the Power Broker story.
Yep. And you've got the... Yeah, so
you got Zemo.
Right. So it's a lot thrown at you, but I do think like I had not rewatched it since watching it when it came out. So kind of seeing it now after we've seen so many other things that have come out since then, it was kind of like just right. Like 6 episodes was enough. Like I didn't feel like it was dragging as much as some of the other shows that tried to go like 8 episodes. We're like, I think they could have cut an episode or 2 on that one.
Yeah, I agree. Part of me wonders, and we'll go ahead and talk about this, part of me wonders how much of that had to do with the supposed, because Disney or Marvel never confirmed this, the supposed changes to the story due to COVID.
Yeah, which I heard that
apparently,
too.
Yeah, apparently the Flag Smasher storyline had to do with a deadly virus. And, of course... the COVID then happens and they go, yeah, we probably shouldn't do that. And you can tell there's some moments that were edited weird, or you can tell that there were some changes made. There's some, I don't know how much you picked up on this, but there was a few scenes where I'm like, that ADR work is like, they'd cut away from a character and then but you'd still hear their voice, but their voice sounded just slightly different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely noticed that.
Yeah. So I don't know how much of the story was changed, or if that maybe had an effect on why it's only 6 episodes. Maybe they cut so much out of it. They were able to condense it down to only 6, and it was originally meant to be 8. I don't know.
Yeah. And probably why they felt like they had to bring in like Zemo for like 3 episodes to just kind of, fill in some holes, or, more of Sam and Bucky's backstory to kind of like give it a little bit more padding if they couldn't go as far into the original ideas they had planned.
The series was created by Malcolm Spellman. If you are not familiar, he is the writer and co-executive producer of other series like Empire.
Okay.
And on Peacock, Bel-Air, the overly dramatic Fresh Prince of Bel-Air
that
remake.
Nobody asked for.
Yeah. And all of the episodes were directed by Carrie Scoglin, who also, I found out, has directed a whole bunch of TV. She has directed multiple episodes of Stephen King's Under the Dome, Vikings, The Walking Dead, Fear the Walking Dead, and the Joe Hill AMC series. It's supposed to be Nosferatu, but if you don't know what I'm talking about, it's spelled NOS, the number 4, A, the number 2, because it's the license plate off of the main character's vehicle. And starring, of course, Anthony Mackie returning as Sam Wilson, the Falcon. Sebastian Stan returning as Bucky Barnes, the Winter Soldier. Then we get introduced to Wyatt Russell as the new Captain America, or U.S. agent as he becomes. We get our semi-villain, I guess, Aaron Kellyman, playing Carly, the quasi-leader of the Flag Smashers.
Yeah.
Emily Van Camp returns as Agent 13 for some reason. And we get introduced to Carl Lumbly, who is playing Isaiah Bradley, the another Captain America.
Right.
I refuse to call him what they usually call him. But he was another Captain America from the comics. We'll talk a little bit about that. If you are confused about the timeline, because once Infinity War hit, the timeline gets a little iffy. This is, even though it was released in 2021, the show is taking place in roughly, when I did my calculation, it's like spring of 2024. Because it's supposed to be taking 6 months after Endgame. And Endgame, I believe, took place in October of 2023. So if you do the math, this should be about spring of 2024. But what were you said this was just the second time you saw it. But when you saw it the first time, like, what was just your initial reaction to this series, especially after, because again, this was the second one after WandaVision. Yeah. And so a completely tonal shift.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. WandaVision was really good, even though it it's the premise started and it became something you didn't really expect. It was a slow reveal of what it really was. Yeah. This one, not so much, but I was really excited about this show. And going back to like the trouble with the COVID break, changing the story, I want to say this was supposed to actually come out before WandaVision. Like the original plan was, it was supposed to be released first.
I do remember hearing that. Yeah.
So I remember hearing that it was getting pushed to be second. I was pretty disappointed because huge Captain America fan. I really loved Bucky Barnes and the Winter Soldier storyline. I liked Sam Wilson and it seemed like an interesting story to tell, like putting these two guys together. You've seen them somewhat kind of bond in, the last in Infinity War or Civil War, and then the Infinity War Endgame. But this was one, like, I think I liked it better watching it, kind of binging it. Like I watched 2 episodes and then I took a break and then I watched like 3 episodes. But having to wait a week between each episode was a little, and we were still kind of getting used to that because when Disney did that, we were so used to Netflix just jumping a whole series, so we weren't used to having to wait a full week. So I think
you're not used to it. Both of us are old enough that that's how we watch TV.
You know what I mean when it comes to streaming. We want it. We want it right now. Come on.
You may. I still enjoy the week to week.
Yeah, I'm getting used to it again. Now it's become more established, but yeah, I felt like it felt very disjointed the first time I watched it. It didn't really start to come together until maybe the last 2 episodes.
Isn't that the case though for most of these Disney Plus series?
Yeah, I think
they're slow burns.
Yeah,
like
they
almost
are.
all of them.
Yeah,
are just slow burns.
Which I think is what kind of, I want to say, we'll get into a completely different conversation. Like what kind of hurt Marvel in the sense of putting so much emphasis on the shows is we were so accustomed to that 2-hour quick action, quick story, like a very much faster paced storytelling, to then kind of really kind of put the brakes on for these shows where it's much slower pace. I think we just weren't I don't think we were ready for that as much as we thought we would be.
Yeah. Do you think that the shows might even benefit from maybe just doing them like quote unquote mini series, like just making them like either 4 1-hour episodes or maybe just a 2-part 2 hours?
Yeah.
Like the miniseries we used to get.
Yeah.
I agree
like,
of
with
course,
that.
me with the Stephen King stuff, the Stephen King movies were usually like 2 nights and it was 2 hours each night. And
I think this one, I think all the stories it was trying to tell, that would have been hard to do. But I think if they would have scaled back some of the things it probably didn't need, I think it would have worked better that way. I'm trying to think of some of the other shows that I think did the pacing better. And one
good luck.
Was that? Yeah.
Good luck.
Yeah. Hawkeye, I think, is the one that I think stood out to me as being the one that seemed to have enough action and enough movement in the story. But I haven't watched that one again since it came out. So I might change or rewatch it again. But yeah, but most of them have kind of been that way where they start off like episode 1 and 2, you're like, okay, I'm in for it. I'm in. And then by 3 and 4, you're kind of like, okay, when are we going to get back to like what we started with? And then it starts to like get its footing again in, episode 6 and 7. But
yeah, well, before we get too far into it, let's look at the comic book connection.
Yeah.
Step into the panels, heroes in action. Flip through the pages for your satisfaction. Feel the thrill and join a collection. It's the comic book connection.
The comic book DNA of the Falcon and the Winter Soldier pulls from a few key eras of Captain America history. Sam Wilson first appeared as the Falcon in Captain America number 117 in 1969, created by Stan Lee and Gene Colan. And from the beginning, he was more than just a sidekick. He was a partner with his own voice and mission. Bucky Barnes, meanwhile, goes all the way back to Captain America Comics number 1 in 1941, when he was created by Joe Simon and Jack Kirby. But this modern version of Bucky as the Winter Soldier came from Ed Brubaker's influential Captain America run in the mid-2000s, which redefined him as this brainwashed assassin struggling towards redemption. John Walker has comic roots as well, with him first appearing in the late 1980s in Captain America number 323 as U.S. Agent, a government-appointed replacement for Steve Rogers, created by Mark Grunwald, embodying the idea of Captain America as a symbol that can be claimed, controlled, and contested. And the heart of this series, the question of what it means for Sam to carry the shield, draws heavily from the 2014-2017 comics, where Sam officially becomes Captain America, exploring the weight of that legacy, the identity, and what the symbol of Captain America means to a modern world. So there was a lot. With that being said, there was like you said, a lot going on, but I think it was such a heavy story to tell.
It was. Yeah.
And I think some of the things they added to it, in my opinion, kind of took away from that a little bit. Like, I think what made The Winter Soldier, the movie, what made The Winter Soldier so good is that it was a political thriller that didn't get too carried away with being a superhero story. I think this one had the ability to be a political thriller, but it did get distracted by being a superhero story.
Yeah, I can agree with that.
Because I honestly think if you just focus on the conflict between Sam and Bucky and John Walker, and sure, you can have the Flag Smashers in there as the thing that, you know, they're conflicting over. But I think developing the Flag Smashers story as much as they did by including Zemo, by including Power Broker, I think it got too watered down.
Yeah.
Well, but let's just get into it, because I've got a lot that I want to say, and I told Tim, you know, I don't want this podcast to be political, but there's a lot of really kind of political ideas and things that, again, for a modern world is just relevant. So let's just first get into the main thing, and that is Sam Wilson and the Shield, which is the heart, of course, of the series, where it opens up with Sam taking the shield that he was given by Steve at the end of Endgame. And he, of course, is dealing with the conflict of, can I do this? Am I strong enough? But I don't think that's what it's really about. I think it's more so Sam is more questioning, if I do this, will I be accepted?
Yeah.
And I think that's more of what it is he can't bear the weight of, or at least at the beginning, he doesn't feel like he can bear the weight of Captain America at the very beginning. I mean, Steve hands him the shield, and this should be the, you know, passing of the torch moment that we get, but instead Sam understands something that, you know, we understand, that the shield isn't just the hero, but it represents America, and unlike Steve, America's not that perfect.
Right.
You know, America is complicated. And this show makes it very clear that Sam isn't rejecting the shield because he doesn't respect Steve. He's rejecting it because he knows what that symbol means to people. And he knows, as well as learns, what it kind of means historically. What did you think of them starting this show right off? Because we got that moment at the end of Endgame, and then this show just starts right off with Sam relinquishing the shield.
It was definitely shocking. Like, that was not what I expected going into, like, the first, especially after that first opening sequence where you're kind of seeing him look like he's taken on that mantle. He's, you know, fighting, and, you know, he's in the suit as the Falcon, and he's on a mission. And then, you know, then the next scene, he's like going to Washington to, you know, hand over the shield. So it was kind of like, I didn't really expect that. And so, like you said, but it takes a while before you understand why he did it. And then, which I think is where this show works, is putting that dynamic of Bucky and him together. And I love that scene in the with the counselor, where they're having to talk. She's making them kind of talk it out, and Bucky says, if he gave it to you and you weren't right, was he wrong about you? And if he was wrong about you, then he was wrong about me. And they both are having this identity crisis of, they had this friend that saw the best in them when they couldn't see the best in themselves, now has gone, and they're like, do I still believe that or not? And did he really believe it, or was he just blowing smoke? Which I think, I wish the show would have been more about that than everything else it threw in.
And again, that's where I'm saying, like, they could have been, this show could have had played more on the drama, more, like I said, on the political thriller kind of aspect of it, of that conflict. No, I totally agree. And again, I hearken back to Isaiah Bradley, who we get introduced to, which for people who didn't know, I mean, he is a character from the comics. But when he's introduced, it was almost as if Marvel just stopped being Marvel for a second.
Yeah.
And they went really powerful with this character because he's a reminder of the negative side of
American
what
history.
what America history is.
Mm-hmm.
And it's to show, yes, as they even say, like there is no other Steve, there will not be another Steve Rogers.
Mm-hmm.
But this is showing where America said, we need more. We need more. We got to create more. And so Isaiah Bradley is a reminder that they tried this on other people. They experimented.
Mm-hmm.
There were other men and possibly even women who were used and discarded.
Mm-hmm.
And Isaiah, which Carl Lumbly is just amazing.
Yeah, love him. Love him as an actor.
And of course, for those of you who don't know, he was the voice of Martian Manhunter in the Justice League animated series, and then would later play the Martian Manhunter's father in the CW.
Yep.
But I really like that Isaiah just tells Sam just as bluntly as he could that no self-respecting African American, although I do believe he does say black man,
right? Yeah.
would ever want to be Captain America. And that just was a moment.
Mm-hmm.
Like that landed like a punch.
Yeah.
Because he's not speaking hypothetically.
Right. Right.
He is speaking historically. This was when the show is saying that there is a legacy to the Shield, and not all of it is inspiring.
Mm-hmm.
And man, that just, I would have loved to have seen more play out. I would have liked to seen, I guess, a little bit more of an arc with Isaiah.
Yeah.
Not necessarily, I'm not saying a redemption arc. I'm not saying he comes over to the side of America or anything. I just would have liked to have seen him and Sam's relationship develop a little bit more throughout the series. The same way we see his friendship with Bucky kind of develop. Mm-hmm. Using Isaiah as the other half of his mentorship like Steve was.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the inclusion of Isaiah Bradley in that storyline is probably one of the boldest things Marvel has done.
And it's funny, like going back and rewatching it now, I felt like there was more of that in the story than like when I'm looking back on it, especially because when you watch the Captain America Brave New World. Yeah, sorry.
Brave New World. Yeah.
All these subtitles. Bradley, Isaiah Bradley is very prominent in the first half of that movie. And so they bring him back. And so I was like, oh yeah, for some reason when I saw that movie, I was like, oh yeah, that was a big part of Falcon and Winter Soldier. And then going back and watching it the last couple of days, I'm like, it really isn't. He's maybe on screen for 15 minutes out of what, 5 to 6 hours. So, but that at the same time, that shows you the impact of his scenes though. Even though he wasn't in the fully weaved through the story as much as other characters, it still had impact. That when I saw him show up again 4 years later, I remembered the importance of his character, even from the show that had come out, 4 years before then.
Yeah, I just think that, and of course we're not talking about Brave New World, but I think that when he shows up in Brave New World, I would almost guarantee, not only do you have the people who didn't watch these series, but even for people who probably did watch the series, to first off see him and then just go like, wait, who are you? Or or not know that he is a super soldier.
Right.
And then of course you see what he does when he's brainwashed in that movie.
Yeah.
But also the impact of, like in Brave New World where he says, I'm not going to be locked up again. Because that is what they did to him. He became Captain America. They used him, and then they locked him away, trying to hide this dirty little secret.
Yep.
Which again, as much I know I just compared him with Steve as like a mentor, but now you've put him on the level with Bucky. Like he and Bucky both were used. They both had their, they both were turned into these super soldiers. One was used, quote unquote, for good, but essentially as a weapon for America. The other was used as a weapon against America. And both of them essentially had their lives taken away from them.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, Bucky, at least he didn't age.
Right.
And so he does get to still kind of experience life, whereas Isaiah did age. I do find it funny that they never quite explain how old he's supposed to be. No. Because you would have to assume that he would be pushing 100.
Yeah.
I would say maybe, because you're looking at if they did the experiments on him in the 50s, after Steve disappeared and they were doing, or even the 60s, if you were to say he was 20 at that point, you're talking about, it's now 60 years later, 60, 70 years later. So he is got to be, around 80 at the youngest. So, I did kind of find that interesting, kind of given that aspect too of, but because of the super soldier serum, it might slow his aging a little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, same way, Steve shows back up at the end of Endgame. He went back. He essentially went back to the 40s, maybe early 50s, when he went back in time, and, he lived out his life, but yet he was still there. And I don't know. I just think that there was so much more to tell of Isaiah's story. And even with the idea that a lot of these shows are supposed to be creating new characters and a lot of these younger characters. So we already had in WandaVision, we had Billy and Tommy. And then you mentioned Hawkeye, where we get introduced to the new Hawkeye. And in this one, it's supposed to be Isaiah Bradley's grandson.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, you're supposed to find out that he has some of the super soldier in him, and he's supposed to become a character. But we got a glimpse of him, and then
that was it. Yeah,
nothing else of him. So, yeah, there was a lot more in there. But yeah, I know you've already talked about it. But so do you feel that did it hit hard for you, or do you think that it came in, gave you a 1-2 punch, and then walked away?
Yeah, I mean, I think it hit hard there, and that's why I think I wish it would have had. I wish we'd have been weaved in a little bit more in the story as a whole instead of just kind of peppered in there. But like I said, it's still, I think looking back on it, it was still impactful. But watching it again, I wish there would have been more of that story.
But one that we did get, kind of dealing with his grief and all that, we did get a lot more of Bucky, and the redemption he's having to face after Winter Soldier. And I mean, you got to think that this man, I guess you could say, survived war.
Yeah.
But then he was brainwashed. He spent decades, doing just violent things against people. And now, after the events of Winter Soldier and him being broken, thanks to the Wakandans, being broken of his brainwashing, now this man is having to try to live as just a person,
right? Again.
And so it's fun. We get to see him, go on a date. I did like when he's hanging out with the old man at the beginning, and he's talking to him like he's an old man.
Yeah, yeah.
because again, he's what did he say, like 110 or whatever
Mm-hmm.
his age is at the time. And yeah, and I like that they do draw that out. Like his healing isn't, cinematic. He's going to therapy. He's
Mm-hmm.
experiencing guilt. He's sitting with people that he has hurt and realizes that there's no easy way to just walk away from that, to just you can't erase that from your life. And so I did like that his arc does play out kind of slow and uncomfortable, because that makes it honest.
Mm-hmm.
And this is probably one of the best performances, in my opinion, Sebastian Stan has ever given.
Yeah. Yes.
And he doesn't play the character. A lot of people think of the Winter Soldier and Bucky as a cool character. And in this, he's not. He's tired. He's broken.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
He's trying.
Yeah. I did like, going back to like him remembering that him and Steve are, this pretty much the same age, both being kind of frozen in time. Or, I can't go. I'm trying to go back to like Winter Soldier. Like, well, was Bucky really frozen, or they just how they used him? He didn't age, but either way. But
well, they would freeze him and then they'd wake him up.
Oh, okay, yeah.
To do something, and then they'd put him back into a cryo freeze.
Okay,
yeah,
that's helpful. But when Steve came back, he was surrounded by the Avengers and kind of had this support system. Yeah, they made fun of him. They picked at him because he was very old-fashioned. But he had a team that was kind of like bringing him up to speed, where Bucky, because he came out and was on the run, he's been very much that independent. And so it's interesting to see, like you said, him having that he wants to be in the current world, but he's still holding on to so much of the old world. Like you see more of that, definitely in the show, you see more of that struggle that he's carrying than we saw really with Steve in the few Avengers movies after he came out of out of being frozen.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know, just something I kind of thought about, which that whole scene with him, with the old man and, him going on the date. I mean, I'm sure he's thinking, she asked the questions, what's the glove for? And he's like, I have a skin condition. In his mind, he's like, how far can this date really go before I have to tell her, my whole story and why my arm is made out of vibranium? It's like, I'm not this normal guy. I want to be normal, but there's no way I can be normal. So.
Didn't you love that you brought up about his arm? Didn't you love though that moment where he's helping Sam with the boat?
Mm-hmm.
And Sam kind of says something about like, why didn't you just use your arm?
Yeah. Yeah.
And he says, didn't really think about it.
Yeah.
Like, I'm right-handed.
Yeah. Like it's not always my first instinct. Yeah. I think is what he says. Yeah.
Yeah. And I love that because again, that's showing kind of Sam, it's Bucky inadvertently kind of showing Sam, like you can still be you.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you have this other thing about you.
Mm-hmm.
That yes, even though Bucky does have this mechanical arm, if he's still just being Bucky, like that arm is nothing other than just his arm.
Mm-hmm.
Like he doesn't think about the fact that he has that ability. He's just being Bucky Barnes.
Mm-hmm.
It's just I loved the way that they just developed that character. And again, I know we got to see it kind of develop over Winter Soldier and then into Infinity War.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I guess not really so much Endgame because it's not until the very end that he shows up in Endgame. Did you notice that the little book that he's keeping his list of people he has to,
make amends?
Make amends with? That's Steve's book.
I didn't until he said it at the end.
Yeah.
I didn't pick up on it until he made reference of it. Yeah.
Yeah. And so once you know that, thinking about the fact that Steve used that book as a way to go, okay, these are things I now have to learn about.
Mm-hmm.
For then Bucky to be using it as something of, these are the things that I have to make amends for.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like it's kind of an interesting
Yeah.
balance.
Very good. Yeah. Very smart writing there to have that there for sure.
All right, we'll be right back.
Life moves pretty fast. If you don't stop and listen to an 80s Flick Flashback podcast once in a while, you could miss it. Do you love movies of a certain age? Do you miss the days of VHS tapes, VCRs, and the video rental stores? Does the thought of another 80s movie being remade seem inconceivable? My name is Tim Williams. I'm the creator and host of the 80s Flick Flashback podcast. On each episode, I'm joined by guest co-hosts to discuss one of the many movies released in the 1980s. We share our first-time watch memories, our favorite scenes, and even learn some behind-the-scenes stories about the cast and crew along the way. New episodes are released every other Friday on your favorite podcasting platform. So make like a tree, get out of here, and go listen to an excellent episode of the 80s Flick Flashback podcast. The ad is over. Go home. Go.
Then, of course, we have John Walker, the government's Captain America. He is, I will say, he is, in my opinion, one of the more fascinating characters that Marvel has actually given us, probably since Endgame, because he's kind of shown, you kind of, when you're introduced to him, you're like, I'm not going to like you.
Yeah.
Yeah. When that first episode ends, there's that really goofy shot of him, which just blew up in the memes.
Yes.
Right after that came out, people talking about how much he looked like the old guy from Up.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Which is crazy because he never looks like that again. So I don't know what it was with camera angle, the way he was holding his face, or what it was. He absolutely did not look like the son of Kurt Russell and Goldie Hawn.
No.
In that one shot. But the thing about him, and this, I find this also interesting with the fact that, of course, later, because we are recording this after the fact, that he would become one of the Thunderbolts, is that he isn't, and never really is a supervillain.
Right.
He has the one lapse moment where he murders the one guy. He makes some, he of course is influenced by the super soldier serum that he is taking, which of course they play and they say it really just makes it, enhances the person who is already taking it.
Right.
But he isn't a supervillain. He isn't Loki or Thanos or Agatha or any of these villains that Marvel has given us. He's just a guy. And he is a decorated soldier. He's a man who did not choose this position. He was chosen.
Yeah.
And the government chose him because they wanted that symbol to be under their control. Going all the way back to Civil War.
Yeah.
That was the whole point of the Sokovia Accords in the MCU. Or the Superhero Registration Act, if you're talking about the comics. Which, again, all of this does come from kind of that same Civil War kind of storyline, because those of you who don't know, at the end of the comics, at the end of Civil War, Steve is shot and killed. And so that leads to, Bucky and Sam, who would become the new Captain America. And I like that it's not so much that John Walker is the villain, it's what happens when you treat the symbol of Captain America as a brand. Like it's a title that you just appoint to somebody.
Right.
And I honestly think, and I've always said, though, a good villain is one that you have a little bit of sympathy for, or empathy even. The tragedy of John Walker is that he wants to be worthy of that title.
Yeah.
But he unfortunately isn't Steve, and of course also he isn't Sam. Whereas Steve carried the shield, and then Sam also would later carry the shield. Walker saw it more as wielding the shield. And I think that also had a lot to do with it, because when he crossed the line, and he murders that guy, the show is showing that this symbol cannot survive without the symbol of the shield cannot survive without the soul of the man that's behind it.
Right.
But I'll ask you, did you ever sympathize with John Walker, or did you think that he was just the wrong choice from the beginning?
Yeah, I didn't like him. It's like I wanna say like there were some moments, and once again, I think another part of the show that I wish was a little bit more developed. His struggle, it's there, I mean, I guess it's there. Like when basically he gets pummeled by the Wakandans, and he makes the comment like they weren't even super soldiers or whatever. It's like he was like, I'm limited. I can never be like Steve with Captain America because I don't have the super serum. So yeah, I'm a great soldier, but I'll never be a super soldier. So then that struggle of him trying to decide if he's going to take the serum or not, and then when he does, then of course that alters his rage, his thinking, self-control. I wanted more of that tension in the story.
Well, that's just like, I think to counter that, those moments, especially with his wife, you do get those glimpses of he is a good man.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Again, his motivation ends up being flawed and wrong. So that's of course where he is flawed as the character and what eventually makes him. But I think, and again, this is also me speaking from post Thunderbolts, where we did get a little bit more development of his character.
And I was gonna say, like, even at the end when he comes out in his new suit and now he's U.S. agent, it's like you can even still see there like there's a little bit of a struggle. Like his wife's like, we did it, you made it, and he's still kind of like, did I though? Am I on the
Yeah.
So I mean, I think I like that it's the beginning of his arc, and I like that we didn't lose that. Like I said, we had to see more of that in Thunderbolts. So I appreciated that, but I'm cool with that.
No,
But yeah, I was never rooting for him though.
I get that. I get that.
Yeah.
No, I'm not saying you're necessarily rooting for him. I'm just saying, like, you understand that he's not the villain.
No. Yeah.
Yeah. And so again, when you throw him into, and I know that when we got to the Thunderbolts, there's him, there's Yelena, which you're going like, neither one of you were ever actually villains. Mm-hmm. But then, you do get characters like Ghost, but then Ghost also was a sympathetic bad guy. Mm-hmm. She was the bad guy, but she was a sympathetic bad guy. Taskmaster that they tried to make sympathetic. Of course, Red Guardian. I mean, all of those characters, I get that they were trying to say these are bad guys, but they're bad guys, because of circumstance.
Right.
Right. Yeah. They're not your typical bad guys. And I think they did a good job with John Walker with that. But I do agree, like you said, I would have liked to seen it play out a little bit more. I would have liked to have had a little bit more with him and his friend, who was also, I forgot the character's name, I didn't write it down.
Yeah.
Who's also from the comics. Like he even becomes kind of like the Bucky to his version of his, U.S. agent. Mm-hmm. But yeah. Well, let's get into probably the weakest part of the whole series, and that's the Flag Smashers.
Yeah.
This is the messiest part of the show, not necessarily because the idea is bad. I mean, I get the whole idea that these are people who, because of the blip and the way the world, because honestly, the MCU did not let up on the fact that during the blip, things were better. Now you can say in what way were they better, but they have pretty much admitted that as as government and politics and all that, like, things were going better. So I get that the idea is compelling, that people who felt forgotten before the blip, and it erased all of that. That's interesting. It's a real thing, but the show struggled to really fully shape them into something that was coherent.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how much of that was because of maybe the COVID alterations that they made, but I think like the character of Carly was more of a concept than an actual like fully realized character.
Yeah. She wasn't very well fleshed out.
Yeah. So sometimes I don't think Marvel knows how far it wants to go in exploring things like, revolutionists or terrorists, or because you think even go back to Iron Man 3 with the Mandarin, they ended up going, yeah, he's a terrorist. Oh no, he's a terrorist. And psych.
Yeah.
Not
He's an actor.
Not really. It's just this guy who's just trying to, again, do things for political gain.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like they don't really want to touch it. They did the Hydra stuff, which is probably the closest they've come. But even when you go back to the Captain America, the First Avenger, we're going to tiptoe around the Nazi guys. We're going to just tiptoe around them. And we're going to say, no, this is Hydra. This is something else. Like, we're not going to really play into there's any connection between them and I think it's the same thing with the Power Broker. Like, why did they do that storyline? What was the importance of making Agent 13 the Power Broker? And that's another one of those storylines that even now, 5 years later, has not played out.
Yeah, I mean, you give us that. I was going to bring through. I was going to make sure that we talked about that in the episode because they give her that whole post-credit scene, and we've had nothing, absolutely nothing from that.
But they did a lot of that because you got to look at around also this time we got the Eternals, and the Eternals had 2 scenes at the end that have done nothing. We've gotten the Hercules moment at the end of Thor: Love and Thunder that has not manifested anything. We could probably do a whole one shot on all of the things Marvel has set up but not followed through with. But that does bring me, before we get into kind of the way this series ends. Actually, no, let's talk about the way the series ends, and then we'll continue. Okay. So we finally get to the finale. We get the moment, Sam gets his new gear, his new suit, new shield, I guess you would say, because this is not the same shield that Steve, even from the beginning, like the shield that Steve gives Sam is not his shield. Because you got to remember, his shield was destroyed in Endgame. So we finally get Sam stepping into the role. And it's important that the show doesn't frame Sam as becoming Steve, because Sam is not the next Steve Rogers. Sam Wilson is Sam Wilson. And so, and they did this in his suit is almost identical to what it looks like in the comic when he becomes Captain America. The more white suit, the ridiculous way his, I don't even know what helmet, you want to call it, kind of, but yeah, because there's no helmet. His head is exposed.
Right. Mask.
So yeah, the way the mask kind of worked, it didn't make any sense. It didn't make sense in the comic books either. But I like that whole last episode. Not only do we get the moment of him becoming Captain America, we get him actually, doing Captain America stuff. But then all of a sudden, Captain America takes on a whole new persona. Because Steve Rogers' Captain America was about nostalgia. He is about what America was built to represent. Sam Wilson's Captain America is about progress.
Yeah.
And this is so evident in the speech that Sam gives at the end. I mean, yes, I know it's a little maybe too on the nose, but I like that essentially its symbols don't stay pure by default.
Right.
They have to be fought for. They have to be carried by people who are willing to challenge what they represent. And I think the show delivers its best moment, in my opinion, its best moment at the end when Sam takes Isaiah to the museum.
Yes. Yes.
And sees that Isaiah himself is being acknowledged. And he is, this is actually going to make me emotional just talking about it. To show Isaiah that he has not been erased.
Right.
That he will not be forgotten. And that the real victory is not in being someone who is super strong and can punch the bad guy. It's not in this shield and the person who wields it, being the ultimate American hero. But the real victory is in recognition of everyone who has ever represented what Captain America stands for.
Mm-hmm.
And so, so to me, that finale is the best episode, in my opinion.
Yep.
But again, you hear how emotional I'm getting. Did it hit you? Did it land emotionally for you?
I think it did more so this time watching it again. I think the first time watching it felt a little heavy-handed, a little, like I said,
I'm not going to lie. It's a little on the nose.
It's a little on the nose, but I recognize the importance of it, but it did hit me more. I would say it hit me more in the feels this time. Maybe because, like I said, I watched it more, back to back, really the full story all together instead of broken up. But, or just I'm in a different place now than I was when I watched it in 2021.
And again, that's why I said at the beginning, that's why we talked about before we started recording, like, I don't want to get political.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want this show to be that. We're here to talk about these comic book movies. But Marvel especially has always had its finger on the pulse of the world, of culture, of society. We've talked about the X-Men were created to represent, minorities and people who have struggled throughout the years, not just this one particular group of people, but, just anyone who has ever been persecuted.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what this show was able to do. It was really able to grasp that idea that Marvel has always been good at. DC's done it too. I'm not going to bash DC. I'm a lover of DC. But I think Marvel's done it better. And I think with this show, Marvel 100% said, look, we are going to, we're going to ignore COVID, but we are going to face some of the struggles that America is going for. And even though some of those, I'm not going to say anything's gotten better or changed in 2021 when this came out to 2026 where we're recording it now. But like you said, we're in a different world than we were just 5 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this show 100%, and especially with that finale, in my opinion, it gives you a little bit of hope.
Yeah.
And I think that's 100% what it was meant to do because that's what Steve Rogers stood for.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right. Well, I think we've hashed it out enough. I do want to ask you this though before we go on.
Mm-hmm.
With these series, and because we now have had the Thunderbolts and Brave New World, which were both had continuations from this series.
Yeah.
Do you think that Marvel has benefited from these series so that they can then get to those stories? Or do you think that by not putting these stories into a movie, we get to Thunderbolts, we get to Brave New World, and like I mentioned earlier with like Isaiah, you've got those fans that are watching it going, wait, who's this? What's going on? Mm-hmm. What's happening?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. Like, I think it's still I don't say it's too early. I think the disappointment is I think expectations not being met that we felt like, or let's say the way the shows were pitched to us when Disney Plus was launching, which is why we all signed up for the subscription, was we expected it to be movie, a couple of shows that led right into the next movie, like a continual story that we would see from movie to TV show. Like that's why like we've got to have this streaming service because we don't want to miss the shows, because if we miss the shows, there's going to be pieces of the movie we're not going to understand. What has transpired, on the other hand, has been we had a lot of shows that haven't connected to anything.
Because really, other than WandaVision semi-leading into
Multiverse of Madness, right?
Although to be perfectly honest, I don't think you need to have watched WandaVision. But then we also get WandaVision and Miss Marvel leading into The Marvels.
Yeah.
Which that was Miss Marvel especially was necessary viewing.
Miss Marvel might be the most beneficial show to help you understand the movie. Because I think if you had not seen the show, you were completely lost.
But I also think that's the case with this one. Because out of in the Thunderbolts, you would have no clue who John Walker was.
Right.
And why he looked like Captain America. Why?
Yeah.
And again, we're talking about non-comic book fans. We're talking about just MCU viewers.
Yeah.
Because all the other people were from movies. John Walker was the only one from a series.
Yeah.
And then you get into, Brave New World, and we've got this continuation of Isaiah Bradley's story, and we now have Sam as Captain America. Oh yeah, what did you think about the end when they changed the title?
I loved that. I loved it when it happened.
Loved it. Yeah. Loved it. Yeah. Loved it.
Yeah.
Which immediately went, wait, can there be a season 2 if they're going to call it? Like, will season 2 just be called Captain America?
Yeah, and I think that was the other thing. Like, you kind of saw the same. It was funny. One of the mistakes that Marvel made again when the MCU first started, we kept having sequels like Iron Man 2, Iron Man 3 that didn't really connect with the whole story for the Infinity Saga, but they were there. And that's what I kind of feel like when we have like, the season 2 of Loki. Like, do we need a season 2 of Loki? I mean, I think now we're seeing, I think it has its merits, but
well, of course, it also downsided from the whole Jonathan Majors conspiracy.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
But then all the side shows, like, did we need a Agatha all along just because she was such a standout on WandaVision? Like, was that a necessary show?
Or Echo.
Yeah, which I still haven't watched.
I honestly haven't either.
But
you are looking at. I think another thing was like I own Falcon and the Winter Soldier on Blu-ray, and it says on it the complete first season.
They're like, maybe there's going to be another season.
Well, that's the other thing. I think Disney messed up by calling it. They should have just said the complete series or the
limited series,
event or something like that. I think by making don't make people think this is going to be a continuing show.
Right.
That, like you said earlier, that just think of this as this is a bridge going from one movie to another couple of movies, because that is at least the benefit, is that the ones that have connected to more than one movie. But at the same time, other than these 3, Miss Marvel, WandaVision, and Falcon and the Winter Soldier, none of the others have connected to the main MCU that I can think of. I mean, yes, we got Daredevil that appeared in No Way Home,
right?
But it was a cameo appearance.
Oh yeah.
He wasn't necessary. It was just as he popped up, people went, "Oh yay! Yeah, look, there's Matt Murdock."
Yeah, very much fan service, not really,
but not really necessary.
Yeah.
And now, of course, with Born Again, we might actually start seeing some connection go into the official MCU. But all right, well, let's get into it. Let's bag it, stack it, or trade it. So, Tim, for Falcon and the Winter Soldier, what say you? This
is purely because being such a fan of the Captain America story and the Winter Soldier story. I'm going to bag this one, and I'm not going to apologize for it. It may not be it may not be as high on the list as other people, and it's not a perfect show, but it is worth treasuring to be bagged, in my opinion.
Yeah, this was a tough decision for me because part of me wanted to bag it. Ultimately, I did say stack it.
Mm-hmm.
But again, that's because it is Marvel telling a story about legacy, about identity. It's not just action. It's not just superhero shenanigans.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We get to see Sam's journey in becoming Captain America, and it's genuine. It's meaningful.
Yeah.
We get to see Bucky as this emotional character and how it works so well in the MCU. And of course, the stuff with Isaiah Bradley is just, to me, it's the real weight and really, like I said, what I think the Shield is representing, that this series is showing that it represents. But I kept it at the stack it because as a series, like you even just said, it is messy.
Mm-hmm.
Clearly, they wanted to do something bigger that they just failed to do. So the all that other stuff that they tried to put into this is what held it down to a stack it for me. So
yeah,
that's where it goes from there.
Like I said, I get it. Like I said, mine's pure fan because I'm a fan of the Steve Rogers story and Captain America story.
Well, and to go from there, let me give you my recommendation to go along with this. If you enjoyed The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, I would recommend going out and finding copies of the Ed Brubaker Captain America run, specifically the Winter Soldier storyline, which is Captain America number 1 through 9 in 2005 into 2006. Because this is the comic that brought Bucky Barnes back and created him as the Winter Soldier. And honestly, it explores a lot of these same themes, the ones of legacy and trauma and redemption, and that Captain America means more than just, the man, that it is a symbol, and that symbol can be challenged, that symbol can be reclaimed for the better, as this show does show. And I do think that it is basically a blueprint for what this series did with not only Bucky, but also with Sam. So that is my recommendation. But we'll close things up. Tim, what you got coming up here as we are ending the month of February going into March?
All right. Yes. So really excited about going into March. As we knew in February, we did have a Friday the 13th. And what happens when February and March have Friday the 13th? They double. So we get another Friday the 13th in March. And Laramy's going to join me because we ran out of Friday the 13th movies to cover, we're going to cover Saturday the 14th, a great parody of those movies. And so looking forward to doing that one here. So catch that on Friday the 13th. And then one that I've been asked to do for a while, and it will be a first-time watch for me, Transformers the movie, the animated movie. We're going to cover that here at the end of March. So
talking about making bad decisions.
So looking forward to that as well. So lots of more fun 80s movies to talk about. The rest of the year is looking really good. I'm excited about what we got coming up.
Look, I get to talk about the Friday the 13th movies on your podcast. I get to talk about the Saturday the 14th movies on your podcast. Mm-hmm. Now I got to find a psych podcast so I can talk about Tuesday the 17th.
Yeah.
For those of you who know what I'm talking about, I'm a huge psych fan as well.
Yep.
And so Tuesday the 17th is also, that's what I will be doing in March on Tuesday the 17th, is I'll be watching that episode of Psych, as I probably also will be doing in February before this show is released. I will have already done that. But all right, well, let's go ahead and close things out. And let me give you my last lines. So the Falcon and the Winter Soldier isn't really about who can throw the shield the farthest. It's about who's been allowed to carry it and what it costs when they do. Because the truth that the series focuses or forces us to confront is that symbols don't exist in a vacuum. The shield has always stood for something aspirational. But Isaiah Bradley reminds us that America hasn't always lived up to what that symbol promises. Isaiah's story is the shadow behind the legend, the reminder that there were heroes who served, who sacrificed, and were still erased from history. And alongside that, you have men like Bucky Barnes, living proof that even the people closest to that symbol can still be broken by it. His journey isn't about heroics, it's about accountability, about trying to become a person again after being turned into a weapon. There's so many soldiers that we tend to forget after we have put them onto the fields of battle as a weapon. We forget that they are human beings. And then there's John Walker, who is a warning sign, an example of what happens when that symbol is treated like a title, like a brand, like something the government can just hand out without understanding the weight behind it. All of these stories collide in Sam Wilson's choice. Sam doesn't become Captain America because the world is ready. He becomes Captain America because the symbol has to mean more than it used to. Because if the shield is going to stand for everyone, then everyone has to be seen in the shield. And in the end, Sam carrying that shield isn't just a legacy, it's a statement.
I stand here knowing that my story is part of the larger American story, that I owe a debt to all of those who came before me, and that in no other country on earth is my story even possible.
For today from Moving Panels, I'm Laramy Wells, and I'll see you on the other side of the page.